So welcome, it's December 5th, 2015. This is Gene. I am recording a inking process for a commission I've done. Before I get started, I'll talk a little bit about the tools I'm using. The ink I use is a Kuretake, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correct, Black Ink 60, part of Zig Cartoonist. I really like the blacks on these, really nice ink. Winsor Newton brushes, I'll have a list of them at the end of the video. The little cup you see in the front is actually for contact lens cleaners. I find it works out really good for little cups for ink. And there was a little bottle back there that you might have seen where I put my ink into. It's actually an old Perel hand cleaner bottle. I put it in there and it's easy to squeeze it out into that little contact lens cleaner. My wife actually came up with the idea for using that for my ink. I used to use a sake glass, but wanted something that I didn't have to worry about if I dropped or broke it. So this is a commission I'm doing. If you follow my blog, you have probably seen a lot of my commissions. And I do a lot of Legion of Superheroes, which I don't mind because I'm a big fan of the Legion of Superheroes. So this character is called Wildfire. He actually was introduced right about the time I really got into the Legion, and I always thought he was visually a very cool character. Unfortunately, they never really did a lot with him. He just kind of became a hothead character. But at any rate, what I'm doing right now is I'm inking a drawing. Now, to back up a little bit, I do my preliminary drawings for these type of pieces digitally, and there's a reason for that. I could draw on a piece of paper and erase and draw again and erase and draw again, and then lightbox that. And I'll get back to the reason why I'm lightboxing it. But instead I find it's much easier to just digitally draw it. Less wear and tear on paper and pencil and so on and so forth. And plus I can keep overlaying different layers and get what I want. Like sometimes there were some things about one of the arms up there that I went through a couple of different processes of how I wanted that arm to be. It can be kind of a pain in paper. And I've been working digitally for so long, it's much easier and quicker to do it this way. And the reason why I don't actually draw on the watercolor paper and pencil to do my drawing is because when I get done inking it, because I actually do ink and then watercolor added on, when I get done inking it, I have to erase those pencil lines. And when I start dragging an eraser across the paper, it starts kind of tearing up the tooth of the paper. And that's just, the fibers and the texture of the paper get kind of destroyed. Then I find when I go back through with some washes of color, those areas where the paper have kind of been damaged, the ink or the paint lays down a little differently, and it can look kind of bad. So this way, I actually have the drawing done. I draw it digitally. I print it out on an 11 by 17 piece of paper. I then tape it to the back of watercolor paper. In this case, Strathmore. It's a 12 by 18 400 series, 140 pound paper. And then use this little light box, or light plate, it's really thin, to follow my lines and to actually enhance it. I don't follow everything exactly. As I go along, I will modify it as needed. Like for example, here I realized I forgot to add in a little, vent or scoop or something that Wildfire has on the top of his helmet. And his entire face is glass. Actually, the character is energy beam, so he doesn't actually have a physical body, but this suit contains him. So I had to go back in with some pencils and just kind of modify the top there. Now at this point, I'm using a double-aught Winsor Newton watercolor brush. And that's because I was getting into some real fine lines and details that I wanted to be careful with. You can see it right there. So I'm working on the outline of one of his visor, and then it has an actual another line that's going to go around. That's the trim around it. Now I could have done that probably with the number 1 brush, but I really just didn't want to try it today. And I got what I needed. Really doesn't matter what you're using as long as you get the effect that you're trying to go for. So I'm just kind of going around now as I've gone through the entire drawing with the number 1 Winsor Newton brush. And I'm just kind of adding a few other things. If you notice over on the right top corner, you'll see there's a piece of paper that I've been dabbing ink into. When I start trying to do a little bit of a dry brush effect, where I start laying down ink, but I don't want the ink to be a solid black, sometimes that when I'm dabbing off ink, I'll have a little bit of wet ink still on that paper. And it might be a little bit drier or thicker than what's coming out of the little container I'm using. And I find that gives me a real quick dry effect as I dip it in there and just start inking with the brush. The ink isn't quite as fluid, so it kind of breaks up along with the texture of the brush. Or the texture of the paper, I mean. So now we're going to go in with something that's not exactly what Kirby Crackle, named after Jack Kirby. I'm sure everybody here knows who that is. This is just energy effects coming off of Wildfire's boots. Since he is a being of energy, he actually can expel that energy through his feet for flying, expel it through his hands for blasts, and even through his visor. I thought it would be kind of cool to do it like this, where it had his leg up. Now, the idea for this pose came from one of his earliest appearances. There was this great scene that Dave Cockrum, the artist for the Legion back then, drew, where he was basically doing like a kick and blasted an android in half using the blast from his feet. And I just thought that was such a cool effect. Most of the time he's drawn either flying with the effects from his boots or blasting things with his hands or his visor. So I just like the idea that maybe he's like blasting something that's off camera here, and so the blast is coming toward us. More effects will be added when I start adding color to it. But I'm just dipping a larger brush. This is an actual number 2 brush, and just getting big globs of paint on that ink on that brush, and adding in these little crackling effects. Not really Kirby Crackle. It would be much neater if it was, but this is kind of more of an uneven approach to it. When all this is done and it is dry, I will then go in and start adding watercolor to it. So that's about it. Hope this was entertaining. Here's what the final piece looks like in inks. And here's a list of my tools. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed it.